I stared at my glowing smartphone screen, reading the text message for the sixth time, feeling the cold burn of quiet betrayal settle deep into my chest. Sorry, Dan. The budget is tight. You will have to hold down the fort while we are gone. Keep everything running smoothly. My thumb hovered over the glass keyboard as a dozen furious responses flooded my mind. None of them would change anything. The executive team was already boarding their non-stop flight to Paris, France, embarking on an international trip I had spent the last 6 months meticulously planning down to the color-coordinated briefing binders, luxury boutique hotel arrangements, and financial modeling schedules. Through the glass walls of my corner office in Manhattan, New York, I looked out at the quiet bullpen where just hours ago everyone had been buzzing with festive anticipation. Rolling leather suitcases had been parked beside executive desks, and popping champagne corks had echoed through the wide hallway. The celebratory toast before their departure still left a sour, metallic taste in my mouth. To securing our company future, CEO Julian Thorne had proclaimed, raising a crystal flute while locking eyes with me across the crowded room. We could not have reached this defining threshold without every single person in this building. Every single person except me, apparently. I set my phone down on the mahogany desk and leaned back in my ergonomic leather chair, taking a deep, deliberate breath to compose myself. I am 54 years old. I have worked in corporate operations, supply chain logistics, and enterprise organizational architecture for over 25 years. I joined Apex Dynamic Tech 5 years ago, after spending 2 decades streamlining complex industrial logistic and enterprises across the East Coast. When Julian Thorne recruited me, he promised that title formalities did not matter in a high-growth technology startup environment. He told me that equity participation, operational leadership, and long-term executive partnership were waiting for anyone willing to pour their soul into the venture. I believed his persuasive words. I traded a stable corporate salary for lower base pay and the solemn promise of substantial equity once we secured major institutional funding. I opened my laptop and clicked into the primary pitch presentation deck I had finalized at 2 in the morning the previous night. 380 slides of comprehensive market analysis, algorithmic revenue forecasts, client acquisition metrics, and technical integration roadmaps stared back at me. Every single chart, data pipeline, and system architecture model in that deck had been researched, constructed, and polished by me during countless late nights, missed family gatherings, and exhausting working weekends. This trip to Paris was not just a routine corporate pitch. DeWitt Global Capital, led by the legendary institutional investor Henri DeWitt, represented our final opportunity to secure a $35 million Series B investment round. Without that massive capital infusion, Apex Dynamic Tech would be forced to begin severe staff liquidations within 4 months. My phone buzzed again on the desk. It was a follow-up text from Julian Thorne, sent from his premium suite seat in first class as the aircraft prepared for departure. Forgot to mention, can you update the customer retention calculations in Section 4 of the main deck before morning? Henri DeWitt asked for granular details on user lifetime value metrics. I let out a low, hollow laugh that echoed off the quiet walls of the empty office suite. Of course. They expected me to continue working from 5,000 miles away, refining complex algorithms throughout the night, while they enjoyed champagne and 5-star accommodations on the company corporate credit card. What had I become to them over these past 5 years? A reliable corporate workhorse? An invisible operational ghost who kept the engines humming while others took the spotlight? How had I allowed myself to be pushed so far into the background shadows? 3 years ago, when our core technical infrastructure began failing under heavy corporate onboarding, I personally redesigned our entire data processing architecture. Under Title 17, Section 106 of the United States Code, regarding copyright protection and original works of authorship, I had meticulously documented every line of operational framework code and proprietary trade secret methodology I authored. I had kept these comprehensive records in a private digital vault, hoping I would never need to enforce my legal rights. But, as I sat alone in that darkened Manhattan office building, watching the rain streak across the window pane, I realized that patience without leverage is simply self-sabotage. I pulled up our internal company directory and looked at the titles. Julian Thorne was listed as Chief Executive Officer, Victoria Vance as Chief Marketing Officer, and Rajesh Patel as Chief Technology Officer. My name appeared at the bottom as Senior Operations Architect and Coordinator. Yet over the past 36 months, I had drafted every operational protocol, managed every enterprise client deployment, and written every financial forecast that Julian had presented to our board of directors. I had swallowed my pride, telling myself that when the Series B round closed, my loyalty and hard work would finally be rewarded with the Chief Operations Officer title and executive equity I had earned. Now, as I looked at the empty champagne flutes littered across the reception counter, I saw the truth with crystal clarity. They had never intended to invite me to the executive table. To them, I was an asset to be exploited, an administrative shield to cover their operational deficiencies while they collected the glory. I closed Julian's text message without replying and turned back to my workstation. I spent the next 2 hours focusing on a critical enterprise integration issue that had stalled our largest client onboarding project for weeks. It was the exact type of high-level technical roadblock that officially belonged on CTO Rajesh Patel's desk. But as usual, Rajesh had quietly asked me to fix it behind closed doors before he flew off to Europe. By 8 in the evening, I had resolved the system conflict, documented the deployment patch, and deployed the fix across our live cloud infrastructure servers. At precisely 8:30, a new email notification flashed in the upper corner of my monitor. It was not an internal message from Julian or CMO Victoria Vance. It was an incoming direct communication from Paris, originating from the personal desk of Henri DeWitt himself. I clicked on the thread, my heart thumping steadily against my ribs. "Dear Mr. Albright," the email read, "I am looking forward to our private executive briefing tomorrow morning at 9 in the morning Paris time. Your comprehensive operational framework and scalable architecture design are the primary reasons DeWitt Global Capital has agreed to consider anchoring this $35 million funding round. Your technical clarity during our preliminary video conferences demonstrated that Apex Dynamic Tech possesses the execution discipline required to match its high-level vision. I look forward to walking through the migration protocols with you in person." I stared at the glowing monitor screen, my breath catching in my throat. Henri DeWitt fully expected me to be sitting across from him at the table in Paris the following morning. Julian Thorne, in his eager vanity to present a polished executive triumvirate, had completely neglected to inform our lead investor that the lead architect of the platform had been left behind in New York to save on travel expenses. Before I could fully digest Henri's email, a secondary notification popped up. It was a blast email from Julian, sent to the executive team and CCing me. "Final preparations for tomorrow morning. Dan, ensure the updated presentation slides are uploaded to the shared portal by midnight Paris time, which is 6 in the evening your time. Also verify that the remote sandbox server is accessible externally in case DeWitt technical team requests live testing." Julian made absolutely no mention of Henri's direct message. Either he had not checked his inbox before takeoff, or he was deliberately concealing the fact that Henri had explicitly requested my presence. I leaned back in my executive chair, closing my eyes as 5 years of swallowed frustration and unfulfilled corporate promises crystallized into absolute clarity. I had two distinct choices before me. I could remain the obedient silent coordinator, update the slides, configure the cloud servers, and allow Julian, Victoria, and Rajesh to take sole credit for my life work while they position themselves for massive executive payouts. Or I could step into the light and allow the truth to speak for itself. Under United States corporate law and Delaware business governance principles, corporate officers owe a strict fiduciary duty of candor, honesty, and loyalty to both shareholders and prospective institutional investors. Concealing the true identity of key technical creators while misrepresenting executive roles during a major capital raise borders on material misrepresentation and fiduciary breach under federal financial regulations. I opened a fresh reply window directly to Henri DeWitt. I took a deep, steadying breath and typed a response that was calm, completely factual, and entirely free of bitterness. "Dear Mr. DeWitt," I wrote, "thank you for your message. I am pleased that our operational framework has provided the clarity necessary for your investment evaluation. However, I must clarify an important logistical detail regarding tomorrow morning meeting. Due to internal travel budget allocations decided by our executive management team, I did not accompany the delegation to Paris. I will be remaining here at our New York headquarters. However, I remain fully available to conduct any technical briefings or operational reviews via remote video conference from New York at your convenience. Best regards, Daniel Albright, Senior Operations Architect. I read the message twice to ensure there was not a single trace of emotion, accusation, or unprofessionalism. It was pure, unadulterated factual truth. I clicked send. 15 minutes later, my smartphone exploded with an incoming call. The caller ID read Julian Thorne, Paris, roaming. I let it ring 3 times before pressing accept and raising the phone to my ear. Dan, what on earth did you just do? Julian's voice blasted through the speaker, his habitual smooth corporate cadence completely replaced by sharp panic fury. Henri DeWitt just forwarded your email to my personal phone. He is asking why my lead operations architect is sitting in New York instead of standing in the boardroom in Paris. Why would you send that email directly to him? I kept my voice perfectly flat and steady. I simply answered his direct inquiry with the truth. Julian. He sent me an email expecting me to meet him in person tomorrow morning. I informed him that I was left behind in New York due to budget constraints, but that I was available remotely. You should have routed that communication through me, Julian yelled, his voice echoing in what sounded like an opulent hotel lobby. Now he is questioning our operational structure. He is asking if we are mismanaging corporate capital before the deal is even signed. I listened calmly. You told me the budget was tight, Julian. You told me the executive team needed to be front and center while I held down the fort. I am simply following your directive by holding down the fort here in New York. A long, suffocating silence gripped the line. When Julian spoke again, his tone had shifted into frantic crisis control. Look, Dan, we have to salvage this situation immediately. Henri wants you on a live video conference tomorrow morning at 9 in the morning Paris time. That means 3 in the morning your time in New York. You need to be online, fully prepared to present the operational framework, and you need to reassure him that our team structure is completely aligned. Can you handle that task? I will be at my desk at 3 in the morning, Julian, I replied quietly. I hung up the phone before he could respond, feeling an empowering wave of momentum building behind me. At 2:45 in the morning, I sat at my home office desk in Manhattan, wearing a crisp navy blue dress shirt and a tailored blazer. A steaming mug of black coffee rested beside my laptop. Rain continued to patter against the window pane, but inside my study, the air was still and sharp with focus. At precisely 3 in the morning, the secure video conference link activated. The screen split into 2 distinct feeds. On the right sat Henri DeWitt in his private suite at the Saint-Germain Boutique Hotel in Paris, flanked by 3 senior partners from DeWitt Global Capital, all holding thick technical audit files. On the left, sitting stiffly in an adjacent hotel boardroom, were Julian Thorne, Victoria Vance, and Rajesh Patel. Julian's eyes were bloodshot, his smile tight and strained. Victoria was nervously flipping through her presentation binder, while Rajesh stared blankly at his tablet. "Ah, Daniel," Henri DeWitt said, his rich voice filling my study through the high-definition speakers. "Thank you for joining us at such an ungodly hour in New York. I insisted we speak with you directly before proceeding with any binding investment agreements. I am more than happy to assist, Mr. DeWitt," I replied, maintaining a calm, authoritative posture. Henry leaned forward, placing his hands on the conference table. "I have thoroughly examined the 380-slide presentation and the underlying technical documentation for your operational framework. The scalable algorithm you develop for cross-border enterprise deployment is brilliant. It directly resolves the implementation bottlenecks that normally sink software platforms at this stage. I want you to walk my technical partners through the stress testing models and system redundancies you designed. For the next 50 minutes, I conducted a comprehensive masterclass in enterprise software architecture. I explained our system data pipelines, cloud infrastructure redundancies, and legal compliance safeguards under federal data privacy standards. When Henri, chief technology analyst, interrupted to ask a complex question regarding legacy system migration protocols, Rajesh Patel began fumbling through his papers, offering a hesitant, vague answer. I stepped in smoothly, citing exact server latency metrics, migration timelines, and risk mitigation strategies I had engineered 6 months prior. Henry listened intently, taking detailed handwritten notes in a leather journal. "Remarkable," he said softly when I finished. "The level of operational foresight demonstrated here is exceptional." He turned his attention to the second feed on his screen, locking eyes with Julian Thorne. "Julian," Henri continued, his voice cold and analytical. "Yesterday, your marketing officer, Victoria Vance, presented these financial projections and customer acquisition models as collaborative executive achievements. Yet every technical document, architectural blueprint, and deployment schedule bears Daniel Albright's signature and structural logic. Who specifically authored the core predictive scaling engine?" Julian cleared his throat nervously, adjusting his silk tie. "Well, Henri, as we mentioned, Daniel is an integral member of our core operations team. While internal budget limitations prevented him from joining our physical delegation in Paris, his work is highly regarded within Apex Dynamic Tech." "That was not my question, Julian," Henri interjected sharply. "Who engineered the mathematical architecture?" "It was Daniel," Julian admitted, his face flushing red under the boardroom lights. "Daniel built the initial framework, which our executive team then refined for commercial presentation." "You see," Henri said calmly. He turned back to my video screen. "Daniel, your official title on company documentation is Senior Operations Architect and Coordinator. Is that accurate?" "That is my official title?" "Yes," I replied evenly. "And does your equity compensation and executive voting authority reflect the fact that you built the entire operational core of this business?" Henri asked. "My current equity allocation stands at less than 0.5%, I stated clearly, avoiding any emotional inflection. My base compensation has remained fixed for 5 years, under the understanding that formal executive titles and equity restructuring would occur upon securing Series B financing." Julian quickly interjected, his voice trembling slightly. "Henri, we are currently in the middle of a comprehensive compensation review for Daniel. As a fast-growing startup, we have all made sacrifices, but we fully intend to formalize Daniel's executive package once this funding round closes." Henri DeWitt smiled slowly, a sharp, discerning expression that held zero warmth. "In my 30 years of venture capital investing, Julian, I have observed a recurring pattern. The individuals who build and execute systems are the true foundation of enterprise value. Those who merely present and negotiate are easily replaced. When an executive team flies first class across the Atlantic while leaving their primary operational architect behind to answer 3 in the morning crisis calls, it reveals a profound flaw in corporate governance and leadership ethics." Henri closed his leather journal with a decisive snap. "I have gathered the information I required for this morning's session. Daniel, I thank you for your time and your exceptional clarity. My team will complete our preliminary discussions with Julian today, but I would like to schedule a private one-on-one virtual consultation with you tomorrow afternoon." "I would be honored, Mr. DeWitt," I said. The call terminated. Within 30 seconds, my mobile phone lit up with a barrage of incoming calls and text messages from Julian and Victoria. "You just sabotaged a $35 million deal." Victoria texted, "Call me immediately. You betrayed the team." Julian wrote, however, a third notification caught my eye. It was a private text message from CTO Rajesh Patel, sent directly to my personal line while Julian was shouting across the hotel suite. Rajesh wrote, "Dan, to be perfectly honest, you handled that brilliantly. You built this platform while Julian and Victoria took the credit. You have real leverage now. Stand your ground and use it." I smiled at Rajesh's unexpected honesty. He was an engineer at heart who had grown tired of Julian's theatrical management style. I ignored Julian and Victoria's frantic calls, muted my phone, and closed my laptop. For the first time in 5 years, I slept with absolute peace of mind. I arrived at the Manhattan office of Apex Dynamic Tech at 9 in the morning. The workspace was eerily quiet. With Julian, Victoria, and Rajesh still stuck in Paris trying to repair their damaged pitch, the office felt spacious and unburdened. At noon, reception called my desk. Dan, there is a visitor here to see you. A woman named Genevieve Mercer says she is representing DeWitt Global Capital. My heart gave a firm, confident thud. Send her right back to my office, I said. A moment later, a tall, elegantly dressed woman with sharp features and an effortless executive presence walked into my study. She extended a firm hand. Daniel Albright, I am Genevieve Mercer, Chief of Staff to Henri DeWitt. I arrived from Paris on an early morning flight. It is a pleasure to meet you, Ms. Mercer, I said, gesturing to the seating area. Please, have a seat. Genevieve sat down and opened a leather portfolio. Henri sent me directly to New York to speak with you in person, away from the influence of Julian Thorne and his executive circle. She pulled out a sleek business card along with a thick set of corporate documents. First, Genevieve said, placing the card on my desk, Henri wants you to have this offer. DeWitt Global Capital is extending a formal independent position for you to join our firm as Vice President of Portfolio Operations. The role carries a base salary of $280,000, full executive health benefits, a performance bonus pool, and equity participation in our primary venture fund. Your sole responsibility would be overseeing operational deployments across our entire tech portfolio. I stared at the offer sheet, processing the numbers. The compensation was nearly triple my current earnings, accompanied by real executive authority. I am deeply honored, Ms. Mercer, I said carefully. But what does this mean for Apex Dynamic Tech and the $35 million Series B round? Genevieve leaned back, her expression serious. That brings me to the second matter. Over the past 48 hours, our forensic audit team conducted a deep investigation into Apex Dynamic Tech historical records. We discovered that Julian Thorne previously attempted 4 separate Series B funding rounds with other institutional firms over the last 3 years. Every single one of those deals collapsed during final due diligence. Why did they collapse, I asked. Because institutional auditors consistently reach the exact same conclusion, Genevieve explained, handing me a confidential audit summary. Julian Thorne and Victoria Vance are extraordinary storytellers, but they possess zero operational execution capability. Investors backed out because they realized the company had no scalable framework until 6 months ago, when you finalized your operational architecture. Julian presented your framework to Henri as his own executive creation to secure our capital. Genevieve paused, looking me straight in the eye. Under federal securities laws and the whistleblower provisions of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, misrepresenting foundational intellectual property and executive capability to institutional investors during a securities offering constitutes severe corporate fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Julian Thorne put this entire company in legal jeopardy to preserve his personal image. So what are Henri's intentions? I asked. Henri has structured 3 potential pathways forward, Genevieve replied. Option 1. DeWitt Global Capital terminates all discussions with Apex Dynamic Tech, and you accept our independent offer to join DeWitt Global immediately. Option 2. We invest $35 million in Apex Dynamic Tech, but only under mandatory term sheet conditions that enforce immediate executive restructuring. That restructuring requires Julian Thorne to step down from operational control, elevates you to Chief Operations Officer with board oversight and 15% founding equity, and replaces non-performing executives. Option 3. We issue a strict governance mandate where you take complete operational control while Julian is placed on a 6-month board probation. I reviewed the documents carefully. For 5 years, I had poured my intellect, time, and health into building Apex Dynamic Tech. I did not want to see the platform destroyed by Julian vanity, nor did I want the 30 hard-working engineers and support staff in our bullpen to lose their livelihoods due to executive arrogance. Tell Henri that I am prepared to lead the restructuring, I said firmly. But it will be done strictly on terms that protect the integrity of the work and the security of our employees. Genevieve smiled warmly, extending her hand once more. Henri knew you would give that exact response. That is precisely why he wants you running the enterprise. The following evening, the transatlantic flight carrying Julian Thorne, Victoria Vance, and Rajesh Patel landed back in New York. By 8 the next morning, an emergency executive board meeting was convened in our primary Manhattan conference room. Joining via secure video conference was the lead representative of our early-stage board of directors. When Julian and Victoria walked into the conference room, expecting to find an intimidated employee waiting to be reprimanded, they were stunned to find me already seated at the head of the mahogany boardroom table. Arranged neatly in front of each seat were thick executive restructuring binders I had drafted overnight. Julian's face was pale, his eyes marked by severe exhaustion. Victoria looked visibly shaken. Holding a copy of the conditional term sheet Henri DeWitt had handed them before they departed Paris. "Thank you all for arriving promptly," I began, my voice calm, commanding, and absolute. "As you are aware from the formal communication issued by DeWitt Global Capital yesterday, our $35 million Series B funding round has been conditionally approved. However, the release of capital is contingent upon the execution of a complete corporate restructuring." Julian cleared his throat, taking a seat at the middle of the table. "Dan, we acknowledge that mistakes were made regarding how your contributions were handled during the Paris trip. We are willing to discuss a title promotion and an equity adjustment." "This is not a negotiation, Julian," I said evenly, looking him directly in the eye. "Under the binding terms set by DeWitt Global Capital and supported by our board of directors, the operational governance of Apex Dynamic Tech is changing today." I opened the top binder and read the clear legal stipulations. "Effective immediately, I am assuming the role of Chief Operations Officer, reporting directly to the Board of Directors with full administrative authority over engineering, logistics, and corporate deployment. My compensation package includes 15% founding equity, fully vested, along with complete control over internal budget allocations." Victoria leaned forward, her voice sharp with disbelief. "And what about my position?" "Under the new operational structure," I continued, "marketing strategies will be directly integrated with operational reality. There will be no more false promises to clients or unbacked claims to investors. Furthermore, CTO Rajesh Patel will transition into a specialized advisory role, focusing purely on infrastructure maintenance while we recruit a dedicated vice president of engineering." Rajesh nodded slowly from the corner of the table, showing a faint sign of relief. "Honestly, Dan," he said quietly, "you have been doing the heavy technical lifting anyway. This is the right move for the company." Victoria stood up, her face tight with resentment. "I will not report to an operations officer who was an assistant 5 years ago." "Then your written resignation will be accepted by the board today," I replied calmly. Victoria packed her leather briefcase without another word and walked out of the conference room. Closing the heavy glass door behind her, Julian sat motionless, looking down at his hands. "And what becomes of my role in this company, Dan?" "You will remain as Chief Executive Officer for a 6-month probationary period," I stated firmly. "Your focus will be restricted strictly to high-level public relations and broad strategic vision, subject to board review. You will have zero authority to alter operational budgets, reallocate technical resources, or exclude essential personnel from investor engagements." Julian let out a long, heavy sigh, the last remnants of his arrogant corporate posture evaporating into thin air. "If that is what is required to save the company and secure the $35 million, then I agree to the terms." 2 months later, the transformation of Apex Dynamic Tech was in full swing. With $35 million in fresh Series B capital secured, we expanded our engineering team, upgraded our cloud infrastructure, and deployed our proprietary scaling engine across 40 new enterprise clients. Within 60 days, our operational efficiency increased by 45%, establishing Apex Dynamic Tech as an industry leader in enterprise software solutions. I promoted 3 junior operations managers who had spent years being overlooked by Victoria and Julian, providing them with clear career advancement tracks, competitive salaries, and equity incentives. We created a workplace culture grounded in merit, transparency, and mutual respect, proving that real leadership is defined by empowering others rather than claiming unearned credit. On a bright Tuesday afternoon, a courier delivered a wooden box to my new corner office suite. Inside rested a polished silver Mont Blanc fountain pen, accompanied by a handwritten note on heavy cream stationery bearing the crest of DeWitt Global Capital. "Dear Daniel," the note read, True success is not merely achieving victory over those who underappreciated your worth. True success is transforming the entire enterprise landscape so that excellence, integrity, and honor can never be eclipsed again. Welcome to executive leadership. Best regards, Henri DeWitt. I held the heavy pen in my hand, looking out over the Manhattan skyline. At 54 years old, I had learned that staying silent in the face of corporate disrespect is a choice, but stepping into your true value is a destiny. Standing up for yourself may feel daunting, but when backed by unyielding competence, legal truth, and unwavering integrity, it is the only path that leads to genuine success. I would do it all over again in a heartbeat, except next time I certainly would not wait 5 years to claim my place at the table.